So just a mic test. Can you guys hear us? Cool. So hi everyone. Thanks for joining. Let me quickly verify if everyone can hear us. So hey Amy, hey Mahir, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, hi everyone.
Cool.
Hello, hello.
Awesome. Let me just first get yeah, I think we should be good. All right, looks like we are good to go. So welcome everyone to our live event. Today we have our own Amy and Mahir with us to talk about just green proofs for Bitcoin. Amy, do you mind introducing yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi everybody. It's good to be here with you today. My name's Amy Westervelt. I'm a senior delivery lead at Energy Web, and I'm the lead of the Green Proofs for Bitcoin project here, based in Colorado. Been with Energy Web for about 6 years now, so for quite a while, and excited to share what we've been working on with all of you today.
Awesome. So we also have Mahir with us to answer some of the more technical questions from the community. Welcome, Mahir.
Hello, welcome everyone.
Uh,
And my name is Meyer, and I work as a senior solution owner for over 2 years now in Energy Web. And I mainly manage our identity and access management solutions. And I'm very interested in self-sovereign identities. And if you're following me, so you already know that.
cool. So what makes you so excited about it?
Yeah, the current internet implementation lacks of the identity layer, so it creates the problem of like impersonating some person is quite easier than you think of, and self-sovereign identity is a tag that can solve that problem, and it is already backed by Web3C and major big tech companies. So that's a
Uh,
very exciting tech.
awesome. So we will talk about the tech more in a minute. Amy, let's dive into green proofs for Bitcoin. Could you briefly talk us through like what is it?
Yeah, totally. So I think the shortest answer to that question is Green Proofs for Bitcoin is a solution to bring more transparency into the climate impacts of Bitcoin mining operations in the first hand, and then to recognize miners that are running their businesses in a sustainable way. And we use Energy Web's tech stack and Green Proofs for Bitcoin, as most of you know, in particular our self-sovereign identity technology, which Mahir is going to talk quite a bit about today, to make it more efficient for miners to prove to others that they're operating in a low carbon manner, and also to make it more efficient for investors and organizations and other types of crypto market participants to find green miners and to do business with them. And we think, we're excited about this because we believe that over time, providing this type of service to the Bitcoin community, the broader crypto community, and to the energy world more broadly, can support, a real voluntary market-driven movement towards low carbon mining practices. You see a lot of talk in Bitcoin mining about, regulatory moves to make Bitcoin mining cleaner. I think, our goal with Green Proofs for Bitcoin is to help the industry demonstrate that, it can support a transition like this on its own. We're already seeing a lot of signs of this shift, and we really hope to accelerate it with Green Proofs for Bitcoin.
So, Amy, could you tell us a little bit more about the history? Like, we were part of the Crypto Climate Accord back in the days. How has this evolved? Is it the same? Is
Yeah,
it part of it? I remember that Jesse said, like, it has evolved into a concrete product, which is Green Boots for Bitcoin. Could you tell us a little bit more about the history?
Yeah, for sure. So our thinking about this really did start when we co-founded the Crypto Climate Accord back in, I believe, 2021. And we saw, so much interest in the question of decarbonizing crypto back then, both from within crypto and from more traditional companies and other sectors that wanted to be working more closely with blockchain and crypto, but they were concerned about what they'd heard regarding the potential climate impact. And obviously, there's a climate impact from anything that uses electricity, which is all of crypto. But the real elephant in the room with those conversations was Bitcoin mining. That's really when people talked about sustainability in crypto, they were really talking about Bitcoin mining a lot of the time, maybe most of the time. So, as we started to have those conversations and bring together different voices in the CCA, we really started to think about the question, what would need to change for Bitcoin mining to decarbonize? And I want to emphasize Bitcoin mining is already decarbonizing, but what would it take to make that happen faster? And because most of Bitcoin mining's emissions come from its energy use, and that's one of our core focus areas is energy web, electricity system decarbonization. We had a lot of ideas about how mining could do this by using renewables and operating in areas where the grid is clean and that sort of thing. But one key thing that was really missing is, beyond the sort of early leaders in sustainability and Bitcoin mining, the companies that are already mining sustainably, how do you convince additional mining companies that it's worth it for them to change their operational approach and change the way they're procuring energy? And you need to do that market. You either need a regulatory intervention or you need market demand.
Yeah.
Market demand being a financial incentive from companies that want to do business with sustainable miners. So we saw companies testing out some interesting ways to do this, but we also saw that each one was sort of reinventing the wheel a little bit when it came to what sustainability meant. And that's kind of when we had this aha moment that the problem of helping miners demonstrate that they're meeting certain sustainability criteria is a lot like the problem that Energy Web works on when we work at integrating things like electric vehicles and batteries and solar into the electricity grid, which is, as a lot of one of our core focus areas. You have all of these energy system assets out there that utilities and grid operators would like to work with to be procuring energy and balancing the grid. But because there's no mutually agreed, universally agreed upon way for companies to discover those assets and know what they're capable of doing, where they are, who they have relationships with, the system doesn't scale. Once we realized that, we knew that we had a really nice opportunity to use our technology to focus on this one key missing piece, which was creating a shared way for the mining industry to define sustainability and a tool to help companies that wanted to do business with green miners, discover those companies and transact with them in a scalable, non-siloed way, just like we're doing in the energy sector more broadly with these other types of assets. It's kind of the genesis of where it all came from.
Yeah, we recently kicked off the project with a couple miners. So what was their reaction when we announced it? Because I've seen some posts from miners like really being excited about it, but you've also received probably some emails about it. Hey, Amy, we are live now. We love it. Or what was the general vibe?
Yeah, no, we've had a really wonderful response and support from all the miners that we've worked with. And I think, they're all really proud to be part of this initiative, to be one of the first. They've been awesome about spreading the word, being really vocal about it on social media, doing their own press releases, speaking at events. And I think one of the really cool things about this cohort that we've worked with initially is they didn't all of a sudden become sustainable miners when they found out that Green Proofs for Bitcoin was happening. They've been, running low emitting operations for a long time. So when we went through the process of certifying all these miners, we looked at their operational data from 2021 and 2022, and we found that all of them qualified for certification, not only in 2022 after we'd started talking to them about this, but in 2021. So, these guys are, some of the leading sort of OG miners in the sustainability space, and I'm really glad that we've had their support. And I think they're just really excited to show low carbon mining is not just possible; like it is already happening with a lot of companies that are leaders in the industry, and our job is to amplify those stories and scale those practices rather than to have to invent them from scratch. So it's been a great group. We're really proud of working with all of the miners that are involved.
That's awesome. So talking about the verification part, how does that work? Could you break that up into parts?
Yeah. So bear with me because it might be a bit of a long answer because it's pretty
No worries. We
thorough
love
process.
we love long answers. Go for
All
it.
right, good. So we assess miners based on two different scores, the clean energy score and the grid impact score. And these scores measure a miner's contribution to decarbonization in two different ways. And the reason for that, the reason we just don't have one ring to rule them one score, is that there are a lot of different types of sustainability strategies, and the strategy that works best in one region might not work best in another region. So we needed more than one way to measure, the efforts that a miner is taking towards decarbonizing their operations. So the clean energy score, it's pretty simple. It measures the percent of a miner's energy use that's supplied by non-emitting electricity. Non-emitting electricity we define as wind, solar, nuclear, and hydro. And it assesses that based on what we call the locational method, which is a method that the sustainability world has been using for many years. And that method looks at the area in which a company, in this case a Bitcoin miner, is operating in and what kind of power is supplied to the grid in that region. So, you look at those numbers and you ask, is it mostly energy that comes from burning fossil fuels like coal and natural gas? Or is it mostly non-emitting electricity like nuclear, solar, wind, hydro? If you get a score of 50 on the clean energy score for a given year, what that means is that you sourced 50% of your electricity in that year from non-emitting sources based on this locational method of measuring energy use. So if you're in a really clean grid like Norway, which is 99% non-emitting in 2022, or British Columbia, which is 97% non-emitting, you're going to do extremely well on that score, and many of the miners that we're working with have. Second score is called the grid impact score, and this is something that we're piloting as kind of a bespoke way of assessing sustainability in Bitcoin mining. And it measures ways that companies can decarbonize apart from just being located in a clean grid. So it measures what we call market-based clean energy purchases, which is when you buy clean energy and you as a buyer receive documentation in the form of an energy attribute certificate like a REC or a guarantee of origin, that you and only you can claim to have used the renewable energy from that source.
You can share it, right? That's basically you can share it.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So that mechanism is in place to prevent double counting, so that, if you have 3 customers in the town that I'm living in and they all want to claim they've used renewable energy, they're not all pointing to the same megawatt hour of renewables and saying, I used that.
Yeah.
It's just accounting scheme. But so the grid impact score measures those types of market-based clean energy purchases, and it also measures something else that was really, really interesting to us in designing this, that we think Bitcoin mining is becoming pretty important for, and that's providing grid flexibility. And I think this is a story that many people listening will know from following Energy Web, but as our electricity grids become less centralized, powered more and more by intermittent renewables, which are not producing electricity at a constant rate all the time, and as we start to experience more extreme weather events and other types of climate change consequences, utilities and grid operators need more and more demand flexibility, which is the ability to ask a certain customer or a class of customers to power down so that supply of electricity and demand for electricity stays in balance. And the cool thing about Bitcoin mining is, the more reliable that a class of customers is in actually powering down when the grid operator asks them to do that, the higher the value is of the flexibility that they're providing. And Bitcoin mining is an extremely high value of demand flexibility because it's very firm, which means it's very dependable. If a grid operator calls up a mine and says, please power down, they can usually count on the mine to do that, because powering off Bitcoin mining is very simple, right? And it's not a situation where you have your third shift of workers coming in and you have to send them all home because you're shutting down the factory. It's just, the cost is the opportunity cost of not mining Bitcoin. And then, as a second layer, Bitcoin mining is super price sensitive. So the cost of electricity is pretty much the cost of producing Bitcoin. So, they're really sensitive when it comes to price signals from the grid operator and offers of, we're going to compensate you this much if you power down. So we work that into the score as well, because we think that, demand flexibility is really tied to our grids becoming more renewable, and it is a really valuable thing that miners are contributing. So that's the score. And then today, to get certified, the process looks like a miner, they create a decentralized identifier in the Green Proofs for Bitcoin miner tool, and then they submit the information that we as Energy Web need to calculate both of those scores for them. Then once we've run the scores, we issue them a set of credentials that prove that we reviewed their energy use, company information, and information about their mining activities, and that either their clean energy score, their grid impact score, or both were above 50. And then they get a certification credential. And because these are configured as credentials attached to a decentralized identifier, they're easily shareable, and the miner has a very high degree of flexibility in choosing exactly what they want to disclose to whom. So, if you go into the Explorer today, you'll see that all of the miners who've enrolled have chosen to disclose that they are certified, but only some are disclosing their actual scores. What we hope we will see more of over time is some positive pressure from registry users to have those miners share more and more information, either with the company that wants to do business with them or with the general public. Yeah. And I think what the last thing I'd mention is today, the only party that calculates a miner's score is Energy Web, but our tech supports having multiple auditors in place and a structure that we'd like to build out in the future, where you have N of M parties, some number of the auditors that have to agree on a miner's score for it to be official. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking into this year, is how can we further decentralize the platform in that way and introduce additional companies that miners are comfortable with. So maybe other NGOs, maybe academic institutions, so that those companies can also be scoring the miners to provide the users with an additional layer of trust that the scores were accurate.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the overview, Amy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Mahir, let's talk about tech. How does this work in the back end?
Okay, so I believe most of you have used our staking pools or one of our staking solutions. So as we use our self-sovereign identity toolkit in staking pools for verifying your email, so we use the same toolkit to build the Green Proof for Bitcoin solution, because we wanted to have a self-sovereign system that miners can hold their credential and disclose the information only if they want to. And we believe self-sovereign identity principles and this platform will get along quite nice.
So Mahir,
and therefore we selected that. Yeah.
Just talking about staking, and so in which part did we use verifiable credentials there? Because
we used
go on.
Yeah. We used in two parts. So the first one is the verification of the email. So the stakers entered their email and signed the transaction using their MetaMask wallet. And then, so they received an email into their mailbox and verified their link. By doing so, we actually, in the background, we issued them a verifiable credential. So all of the stakers already have an email verifiable credential.
Yeah.
And so by having that credential, we make sure that the staker is kind of verified.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Cool.
so, and in the same principle, so we allow miners to go into an application, which is our certification application. And so they type down their information. And of course, we are not just asking their email addresses, but more data based on their energy usage, locations, company details, mining gear, etc. And after they submit all that information, which we call it a credential request, and the auditor sees all that requests in Switchboard application, and they just review it and turn it into a verifiable credential by the issuance process. So right now, as Amy said before, so we have EnergyWeb is acting as a auditor, and our switchboard is capable of like
Looping
having
it.
multiple auditors
Cool. So,
easily.
so just to summarize, the miners can provide their data. A switchboard gives access to multiple auditors who can plug in, and based on the data, they will be issued a credential. Is that all right?
Yes,
Cool. Okay.
yes, that's right. And those credentials that the miner collected, eventually, so there's a multiple steps they need to
Mhm.
take the KYC company details and like the energy usage, mining, gears, etc. And after that, uh, after they complete it, so they're allowed to share the information with the general public, which we used our Explorer web page for it.
Okay.
And on the Explorer, they have, before publishing their mining profiles, they are free to select like which options to show, which options to hide. And after that, we turn it into a verifiable presentation. And with the miner's account signature, the ID signature, we just share it to explore the public.
And the Explorer is what everyone can see, right? Where all the miners are listed.
Yes,
Cool.
yes, that's correct. And yeah, for the like that's the current implementation. We call it is a version 1. So we just had an idea and we wanted to turn into a solid application.
Mhm.
So we will, of course, we have lots of plans to improve it. And but of course, like we are very pleasant with the current implementation. It works quite nice on both the public side and both on the miner side. And we want to continue to develop and improve the solution. And one of the key points we want to improve is like the decentralization and the connection between our other solutions. And to add that, also as all of our solutions, we are planning to open source Green Proof for Bitcoin.
That's very interesting. Um, so in our previous live events, Jesse mentioned the worker nodes that will perform useful work in the future. So could you explain how and if worker nodes will be attached to this, and how would it look like?
Yeah, yeah. Worker node concept is very cool concept and very anticipated technology that we are building currently. And so we prepared a roadmap to integrate with the worker node and Green Proof for Bitcoin platform because like it solves the problem of like becoming more centralized platform. So we want to make it a decentralized platform. So we don't want to become the central authority here. So everyone can trust what they see in this platform. So in order to like, I should explain like how things work at this stage. So when miner publish their verifiable presentation into the system, and our backend application verifies it, all the signatures, it goes one by one each credential and checks if it's correct.
Mhm.
And all signatures are when the all signatures are verified, so it shows it in the Explorer. But as you know, like we are running that application, so we own it, but we want to change it with the more decentralized approach. And this is where worker node became more valuable. So we created a plan for how to do it. So the first, we need to change the current centralized verification mechanism with a worker node version.
Mhm.
And then to test it out, it works properly and it works like performant, we need to run a couple of nodes, worker nodes, to test it out, and it is secure, it is stable, etc. And then with the development of Energy Web X and the marketplace, and we will open it up to our community. So we will onboard community members to move forward and participate on this worker node logic.
All right. So right now the plan is to build an integration to change the current model into worker nodes. So Energy Web obviously run the first worker nodes for the beta testing, make sure that it's secure,
Yep.
stable. We onboard the community once the marketplace is live and they can spin up a worker node.
Yes.
So one of the most important questions here and the most asked question is how will the Energy Web token play a role? Which is very simple to answer here, right? If you want to spin up a worker node, you need Energy Web tokens. Like Jesse and I discussed this in the previous live event. So I really urge everyone to read our light paper because the utility is in the light paper, and so in bullet points, when the marketplace is live, you go to the marketplace, you need some Energy Web tokens to run a worker node, and then you can connect your worker node network into Greenpost for Bitcoin. So then the question is, Mahir, what are the worker nodes doing in this case?
So as I mentioned before, like we want to change the verification of the current implementation of the verification logic. So right now, our backend component verifies each credential and makes sure like this data displayed on the Explorer is verified data. So what we are going to do is like we change the same mechanism, but with the worker node. So the worker nodes will constantly check these credentials, and with these regular checks, if the credential is revoked or expired, or like the issuer is no longer an auditor, so we will spot that and we will just eliminate that data from the Explorer display.
So the worker nodes basically check, and how does it check? Like, is it every minute, every 5 minutes? How does that work? Do we know that already?
Yeah, it really depends on the configuration.
Okay,
but
so it's up to
so
it's okay.
it's hard to say.
So let's say the worker node will monitor and verify the data, let's say every other minute or something. What happens if the worker node notices that the data is not accurate anymore? So let's say I'm running a worker node, minute 1, everything's fine, minute 2, we get a pop-up or whatever. How does that work? What happens?
Yeah, so like when the signature check is like returns an error, so which means like either this credential is expired or revoked, or the auditor is no longer on the issuer list. So which creates a odd situation. But yeah, so if it's, for example, an expired credential, we should, for example, notify the miner to like redo the process because it's expired and it needs to be renewed. Or if it's a revoked one from some reason, so it needs to be like completely removed from the Explorer because it creates a problem.
Then. Yeah.
It's revoked, so it's no longer valid. And for example, in other cases, maybe we should show some sort of a warning into the miner's profile.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the business logic, and we will basically put that into
together. Cool.
Application.
So I think closer to the marketplace launch, we will talk about this in more details.
Yeah.
So Amy, one question for you. So let's assume that Greenpost for Bitcoin becomes a large-scale success, which in my opinion, it's already a success, right? Would it be possible to offer this system to other use cases and outside of the crypto industry? Or is it just for Bitcoin?
Yeah, no, absolutely. At its core, this is a very generic technology. It's a tech to help a company prove that it has done something specific, in our world, taking some decarbonization actions, and then do business with other companies that care about that thing that it did. So, that's the highest level of abstraction of what we're doing with green proofs for Bitcoin. And as mentioned earlier, we can layer various types of verification and consensus on top. We've talked about two ways of doing that. One is introducing additional auditors that would have access to the data that miners submit. And the second is, working with a network of worker nodes that wouldn't have access to that sensitive data, but are constantly checking that the credentials are valid, to add additional layers of trust and transparency for other types of use cases, as well as green proofs for Bitcoin. And there's really, no reason you couldn't use this to facilitate markets for things like green hydrogen is actually quite similar to Bitcoin mining in certain ways, with the electricity use and proving where it came from. Clean data center services, and I think probably stating the obvious, but many of the components in green proofs for Bitcoin are, they're common to the energy web technology stack, so they're already being used for things like our work with sustainable aviation fuel, for example.
So, are we talking to other miners or institutional players?
Oh yeah, so we've had a lot of interest since the announcement. We've had some conversations that have been going on since before the announcements, both with miners and institutional players who would like to use the registry to power different types of application where they can reward green mining activities and produce return on investment for those miners.
And you cannot tell us who those players are, right?
No, I can't. Watch this space. Stay tuned.
Awesome. So we have an interesting question for you. As a solution owner who has worked on green proofs for Bitcoin, what makes you most excited?
Yeah, first of all, I'm a tech enthusiast, so using self-sovereign identities to create this size of platform.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, there is no match currently, and so that's a very great opportunity. Also, by doing so, we also created some positive environmental effect, which is very good. It aligns with our cause, so I'm truly grateful. Also, we built this with the very great development team, design team, marketing team, especially you, Daniel. So that was a very great experience to work and build something very cool.
Awesome. I really like when someone who has a lot of knowledge about the tech says it's cool, because I always assume that you've seen a lot of stuff. And when you say, so I just mentioned the worker nodes or Grimace for Bitcoin, and you say it's cool. So I really think it's cool if someone with technical background thinks it's cool. That's my analogy. So the next question, let me just pull up yeah, Amy, I got really a lot of questions about sustainable Bitcoin protocol. What's going on? Is there something? Are we talking? Could you tell us something?
Yeah, sure. So we know the Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol team well. We've spoken with them quite a bit, and they are doing some really interesting work in this area. And I think, it's worth recognizing that they've made a lot of contributions to the whole discussion about how Bitcoin mining can be sustainable, how it's already sustainable in places. So, definitely commend them on their work. And I think they're also a nice example of the types of companies that we want to support with green proofs for BTC, in addition to the miners that we're working with. So, one of our goals, as I mentioned earlier, is to support innovators like SBP who can benefit from accessing a registry of sustainable miners. Our view is that if every company like Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol, before deploying a solution that can generate ROI for miners is their intent. If every company like that has to create its own bespoke definition of sustainability and then run its own process on every single miner that wants to participate to see if they match up to that definition, I see that as unnecessarily slowing down this whole sustainable mining movement potentially. If every single company that wants to make a business out of sustainable Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining defines that in their own way, that also creates the risk of a lot of confusion in the market about which practices are actually sustainable? What does sustainability mean? What is our shared understanding of it? So part of what we're trying to do with Green Proofs for Bitcoin, in addition to providing values for those miners, we want to provide value for companies like Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol, as an example, to connect with sustainable mining operations so that they can really focus on their core value proposition rather than having to spend a lot of time, creating bespoke standards and running M&V.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So
Yeah.
something else that popped up this week, I don't know if you've seen it. So Tether announced that they will, don't shoot me if I'm wrong, but they will, something about Bitcoin mining in Uruguay. Have you seen the announcement?
Yeah, I have, and that's a really interesting and exciting announcement. There is a lot of mining happening in regions of South America that are really rich in hydroelectricity, which Uruguay is one of them. Uruguay is one of the world's cleanest grids because of how much hydropower potential it has. So I think miners operating in Uruguay and regions like it are a great fit for Green Proofs for Bitcoin certification. We have been working to reach out to the Tether team about this, and we would love to connect with any miners operating in similar geographies where the energy mix is particularly clean due to a prevalence of hydro or wind or solar or even nuclear.
So Amy, how would let's say in an ideal world, how would Green Proofs for Bitcoin look like in a couple of years?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, my vision is really that Green Proofs for Bitcoin is helping lead the conversation about what low carbon mining looks like, and that we've really catalyzed the growth of green mining practices by providing this missing piece with connecting miners more efficiently with investors and the innovators and the stakeholders that want to do business with them and help them turn that sustainability investment into real return on investment. And on the other side of the table, I would like to see Green Proofs for Bitcoin really actively supporting investors and other companies that would like to get more involved in crypto or Bitcoin, but who've kind of held back because they have climate concerns and they don't really understand at a granular level, what are the types of Bitcoin mining and what are the implications of different types of Bitcoin mining. So to help educate that audience and, provide them with more confidence in the sustainability of the industry and individual companies so that they can, deepen their involvement in this sector. I think another thing that's important is I'd like to see our definition of sustainability mature. We started with something that was very nuts and bolts based on existing sustainability paradigms from emissions accounting. But I think there's room for it to grow to recognize the more innovative things that we're seeing from Bitcoin mining specifically, things like using waste gas that would otherwise be flared methane or vented methane, providing recognition to really high quality types of demand response and grids that really need it. And I think the last point, we've talked about this a lot today, is further decentralizing the model so that when EnergyWeb or a miner says that a miner is certified, you don't have to take our word for it so much that they met the criteria, right? We'd like to be in a place where that claim can be verified in multiple ways. So for example, via additional auditors that attest that the score is accurate, everybody agreed on the score, and then also, with an additional layer via these worker nodes that would continuously check that the certification is legitimate.
Awesome. So yeah, that's it. Thank you both so much for participating. I'm really looking forward to the developments, and I'm sure that the community will closely follow the developments too. So yeah, if you want more updates about Green Proofs for Bitcoin, I know Amy, you are primarily tweeting about Green Proofs for Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about anything.
Awesome. And then here, I also know that you are primarily tweeting about the technology. So I just got a ping here. They should tweet more. So yeah, you guys should tweet more.
Yeah, sure.
So
of course.
Thanks everyone for participating, and yeah, have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.